What's up, bitches?
Let's talk about crime.
What's up, bitches?
Color.
We were just sitting there chit-chatting, and then all of a sudden the music cuts out. We're like,
awkward.
What are we gonna do? Okay, so I just want to, real quick, you'll know when we're recording this because I'm going to say congratulations to the Eagles on the Super Bowl win. Yay. Well, actually, I didn't really care who won the Super Bowl, but I just didn't want the Chiefs to win again. That was it.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're not Eagles or Chiefs fans, but
if I had
I will
to
say
pick,
it was more
the Kendrick Lamar halftime show is what that, and commercials is really what we were watching.
The commercials weren't even that great this year.
No, they really weren't.
But
I think I laughed twice.
No, what I was going to say is the game definitely did not go how I expected it to do. First of all, if I'm being completely honest, I thought the Chiefs were going to win.
I didn't know, but I didn't
because
think
they made such a big deal about the 3-peat.
I didn't think that they'd get blown out like that, though.
I was just going to say the fact that it was such a big, especially in the beginning, like it took them to what?
The fourth quarter before they even scored a touchdown.
Right.
Or like the very end of the third quarter.
Which I was just, that is what kind of like, woohoo, woohoo.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's what got me.
And now for the people who are not in the United States and maybe don't watch the Super Bowl, my son had made a comment about, or maybe it was you, had made a comment about people asking like, what is the big fucking deal? And
I said it's because we're Americans.
I say the big fucking deal is we want to eat a lot of shitty food, gather, and drink. And
pretty
football
much
just happens to be what coincides with that. It's pretty much, that's just where it's at. So that's all I wanted to say. Then we can get into what we're talking about. I just wanted to preface that.
Also, if you guys hear any movement, Olive is a special guest star again on the bed.
Mm-hmm.
Making a bed.
Yep. Staring at us. Anyways, okay. So do you want to get into it?
Sure.
Okay. So we are talking about the 1960s in Texas. A woman named Irene Garza goes missing, and her body is found a few days after she goes missing. And this investigation actually leads to a suspect, but not enough to convict. And basically it goes cold for like a hot ass minute. Okay. So that's what we're talking about. So we're going to get into Irene. So
okay, hold on. I'm assuming that there is somebody who gets caught though, because your whole thing is we're not doing cold cases.
Ma'am. I'm
just
this
saying.
one is a gotcha. That's why I'm not telling you yet. Just hold on and listen. Just listen. Okay.
Listen, Linda.
I'm struggling with this one. Because I'll get to it in a minute. Okay. So we're going to talk about Irene first. So Irene Garza, she was born in 1934 in McAllen, Texas. Her parents, Nicholas and Josephina, they owned a dry cleaning business. And as a teenager, she was thriving, and so was her parents' business. The family actually ends up moving from the south side of McAllen to the north side, which is like a wealthier area. So like by the time she's a teenager, their business, their dry cleaning business has made enough money that they can afford to move into like the nicer area, the more affluent neighborhood, so that she has a better life, right? Now, she goes on to graduate from McAllen High School, and she actually becomes the first Latina to perform as a twirler, which is also like the head drum majorette, which is a big deal. Like, that's a big deal. She also was crowned Miss All South Texas Sweetheart in 1958. She was also crowned a homecoming queen at Pan American College when she was in college, because I don't know about your guys' college, but back in the day, colleges used to have like homecoming like stuff too, like they do in high school.
Yeah, we definitely did not in college.
We
didn't even have like dances.
They did. I don't know
like
if I don't know very many that still do, but
granted, I was a private college, so that could be part of it. But
no, because I think it just depends on the type of college, maybe.
Because they had events, but nothing like that.
Yeah, no, they used to. Now, she goes on to graduate from college, and she actually becomes a second grade school teacher. And she taught at a school that was located in the south side of McAllen, Texas. So again, she lives in the north side.
She went back to her roots.
But she went back to her roots, and she's teaching second grade. She was actually described by herself. She had written like a like a diary entry.
Autobiography?
No. She had written like a diary entry or whatever, where she describes herself as very shy, but she was super fulfilled by the work that she did. And she also became the secretary of the Parent Teacher Association at her school. So she was very involved with the parents, the kids, her job, and she spent a very large amount of time with her church. She would actually participate in daily mass and communion, which is not unheard of for back in like the 60s. Like, it's just not, that was a thing. Like, people went to, I mean, I think people still do it now, but it was way more common back then. So that's Irene Garza. Now we're going to talk about a man named John Feit. Could be Fett, but I'm going to say Feit. Now here's where I'm struggling. I really don't want to refer to him as what his name actually is, but I have to for the podcast, but I don't think he deserves it. I'm going to tell you a little bit about John Feit and then we'll continue. So John was born November 24th, 1932 in Chicago. He was raised in a traditional German Catholic household in a middle-class family in the south side of Chicago. Now, in 1946, he's 13 years old. He gets sent away to an all-boys school in San Antonio. He also goes to an all-male college, and he studied at the Oblate of Mary Immaculate, and then he becomes ordained as a Catholic priest on September 8th, 1958. He gets transferred to Southern Texas, and this begins a year of pastoral training in McAllen, Texas. What I don't like is I don't want to call him Father John Feit. I don't want to call him Father John because he doesn't deserve to be called Father Nothing. But for the story's sake, I'm going to call him that because that's fucking what he was during the time. Okay?
Bro, I'd put the disrespect. I'd put John.
Okay, but I'm Catholic. I was born Catholic. I just can't do it. Like, I just can't. He doesn't deserve to be called. He's actually a former father, to be fair. He does go on and he actually leaves the ministry, but I have to call him Father John for the purpose of the story. We'll get there. So on April 16th, 1960, Irene tells her parents that she's going to the confessions at Sacred Heart Church. Now, at first, when she doesn't return home, they actually think that she might have just stayed longer at the church for the Easter Vigil Mass, which is typically like midnight Mass, like on Easter. By 3 a.m., she still hasn't come home. So her parents are kind of like, okay, this is really not normal. So they actually contact the police and they say, you know, our daughter's missing. She went to church. She went to Sacred Heart Church for confessionals. She hasn't come home. So the police immediately start to look into it. And they discover that multiple churchgoers, as they're, you know, talking to people, say that they did see her at church that evening. And on April 18th, 1960, people actually are driving down like a road and they find a purse. And they're like, holy shit, it's Irene's purse. A little farther down the road, they find her left shoe. And then farther down the road, they find her lace veil. Because for those of you who don't know, maybe not so much nowadays, but in the 60s or back in the day when you would a lot of times go to church for confessionals and things like that, or just church in general, you would wear like a veil. That was just one of the things that people wore to church. They found that on the road as well. Now, this leads to a ginormous search investigation because now they're like, okay, she went missing 2 days ago. We're finding some of her belongings on the side of a road. She has not appeared. There's something very bad that has happened. So on April 21st, 1960, Irene's body is found in a canal. Now, this canal is several miles away from where her belongings were found. And it is discovered after they get her out of the canal that she died of suffocation. And she had been raped and she had been beaten. Now, there was bruising over both of her eyes and on the right side of her face. They end up draining this canal because it's kind of like, I think it was like a man-made, like on the side of the road. If you've ever seen when you're driving down the road, there's like, it's like it looks like a river, but it's all cement. And it's like, that's what it was. It was like that. So they drain this canal, and in the canal, kind of by her body, they find a thing that's called a photo slide viewer. I am assuming that it's a thing that you would put negatives from a camera into, and then you can look through this little thing and it shows you what the picture is going to be. That's kind of what it
makes me think of like the toy as a kid where you put like the slide in there and then clicked through.
That's kind of what it's like. So they find this. Well, they actually end up finding out that this photo slide viewer is Father John's. He actually comes forward and says, hey, That's my photo slider. Okay. Why the fuck are you telling people that? I don't know. So now investigators start to interview people, and they actually interviewed over 500 people spanning across several Texas cities. This included sex offenders, all of Irene's family members, co-workers, and ex-boyfriends. They actually did about 50 polygraphs, and they offered a $2,500 reward for information about her death because they were fucking stumped. They didn't know what happened to her. They don't know when it happened to her. They were completely confused. Now, they do question, obviously, Father John, because he was the last known person to have seen her. Now, at first, they ask him, like, hey, we've been told that you did a confessional with her. Like, that you took her to the rectory and that you had a confessional. And he said, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. But then later, he's like, okay, you got me. I did. He's like, okay, maybe I did. I took her confessional. Okay. Other people had reported that they had to wait in line to give their confession because, like, you know, that's what you do. And on that specific night that she went missing, they were standing in line to give their confessions to Father John because he was one of like 2 or 3 priests at this church. And they said we had to wait forever because he would like leave and he would go to his rectory and multiple times during this confession night. And it was kind of annoying because we're all waiting and he'd just like disappear for like, I think they said it was like a total of like 4 times that he would just get up and leave. And so they were like, it was just weird. Now he would claim that the reason that he had gone back to his rectory was because he had broken his glasses that night and that he had to leave to go get new glasses. Now it had also been noted
4 times.
Well, he only said once, but witnesses
no, but I'm just saying,
said
witnesses
exactly
said 4 times. So
right.
Did you break your glasses
4
times?
Right? Now it was also noted that Father John had been seen with multiple scratches on his hands that like later that night. Now his explanation for this is that he had gone back to his rectory to retrieve his glasses, to retrieve different glasses, but the door was locked and he didn't have keys. So he climbed up to the 2nd floor and that's how he got his scratches on the back of his hands because he climbed up like with his palms facing him. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? So that's what he tells him. Now, it is also discovered that Father John had listened. There was, they found out for sure that he had listened to Irene's confession in the rectory instead of the sanctuary. Now, here is why that's weird. The rectory is essentially a priest's personal home. Okay, so when you are in, at least Catholic Church that I can say, you have your church and then you have next to the church or fairly close to the church is the home of the priests. And sometimes it's like a big home that they share or like apartments. But like every church in the Catholic area, they give a home to the priest that's part of the church, right? And they live there and it's always right by the church. So that's the rectory. Every church has this. So it's very, very uncommon, almost unheard of, for a priest to have one of his parishioners come to their home to do their confession, especially when it's a night for confessions. You're not bringing them to your home. And a lot of churches have those places that you can sit on one side and the priest sits on the other and you do your confessions. Some do, some don't. That's where you do your confessions. So it was very not normal for him to have taken her confession only at his home. Now, it did come out later that one of Irene's friends did say that Father John, that was not the first time that he had taken her confession. And she said that Irene had come to her like the day after she went to confession. And she said, this is so weird. Last night, I was in line waiting to do confessions and Father John grabbed me and said, I can take your confession. Took me to his home and I did my confession there. She was the only one, though. So it was a little weird. Now, 3 weeks before the murder of Irene, a woman named Maria had been sexually assaulted while kneeling at the communion rail at a different Catholic church. So she was kneeling. She got sexually assaulted. And there were rumors that started flying around that Father John had been responsible for it, to which the Catholic Church stepped forward and said, no, we don't want to make this public because we don't want people to think that priests could do such a thing because they just can't. Now, okay. Father John did admit to being at the church that day. And he said, I was there, but I was just there to visit another priest. Well, they end up showing Maria a bunch of photos and things like this. And she's like, oh, That's the guy that attacked me. And that guy was Father John. Now, let me make myself very clear. I was born and raised Catholic. Okay, I was. I am not at all condoning anything the Catholic Church has ever fucking done in regards to protecting their priests. I think it's the most despicable, disgraceful, disgusting thing I've ever heard of. Part of the reason why I wanted to share this story is because that's exactly what happens in this story, and it's very infuriating. Let me go on. She ends up identifying John. Well, you see, after this happens, the police are like, okay, well, let's go arrest him because obviously he's getting brought up on rape charges. And he's gone. He's gone. And they're like, what the fuck? So they talk to some of the people from the church and they're like, listen to us very carefully. We will handle what happens to him because what he did was wrong. And we will handle what happens to him because we don't think this is the type of thing that should be made public. And what they mean by we will take care of him is they move him wherever the fuck they feel like moving him. And so they start like putting out in the news like this guy, Father John, he is fleeing, he's hiding, the Catholic Church is protecting him. And all of a sudden, Father John comes forward and said, I am not hiding. I'm not afraid. And so they're like, okay, fine. So they're like, well, we're going to charge you with rape. And he's like, fine, go ahead. So they charge him with rape and the trial ends up in a hung jury. So he does not get charged in that moment or convicted.
I'm not as surprised about it being a hung
I'm not
jury
either.
with that kind of a case.
I'm not either. Now, the case at this point of Irene Garza, the one who was murdered, pretty much has gone cold. They have suspicions that Father John is the responsible person, but they literally don't have anything other than that stupid photo viewfinder thing. Nothing else to connect him to her. So it's like they can't bring a case up because it just doesn't make sense for them because they will literally lose and there's no reason. Especially because, I mean, if he's found not guilty, you can't charge him again. So you don't want to put him out there without actual evidence. This kind of starts a thing though where Father John, so he's already gone through this hung jury thing, whatever. He's now taken by the Catholic Church and he has moved around to different Montessori's. At one point, he's actually supposed to be arrested again and retried for Maria's case, and they can't find him, right? And they're just like, what the fuck? And so literally the church had shuffled him around and at one point met with prosecutors and said, again, we will take care of John. Their claim was that they would put him in a Montessori and he would never be allowed to leave. So it'd almost be like his own personal jail, right? And then there was also some discussion, and I'm saying it because it was reported in multiple stories, that apparently the Catholic Church told the police, we know that he killed Irene Garza, but we have our own way of handling priests like this. So in 1962,
With religion, that shit sounds scary as fuck.
I know, right? You're like, what?
But that's almost scarier.
But their way of handling it was they were supposedly going to put him in a monastery where he wasn't ever going to be allowed to leave. But that's not prison. They just stay, like, basically he'd become like a monk. Okay. What a fucking terrible life. Like, anyways. So in 1962, Father John ends up turning himself into the police, claiming to them again, like, I wasn't hiding. I was just doing my fatherly duties at other places. So instead of facing another trial, they have a conversation with him, and he actually pleads no contest to a misdemeanor charge of aggravated assault, and he pays a $500 fine. So instead of even taking him to trial, he doesn't even get charged with fucking rape. He gets aggravated assault. And if anybody doesn't know, pleading no contest to a charge means that you are claiming that you are guilty, you are not guilty, and you are not innocent. That's literally, I know this because when I was a child, I got a minor in possession for drinking. And here's what's fucked up. I got a minor in possession for drinking and I went to court and my option was to try to fight it, which how you gonna fight it? I had a fucking blood or not blood alcohol. I did the blow thing where you blow into the fucking thing. And so they had it on record that I had alcohol in my system. And so the prosecuting attorney looked at me and he said, we'll give you a deal. You plead no contest and pay a $500 fine. Why did I get the same fucking thing? Why did I get the same fucking thing as this guy who raped a woman? That he got the same shit I did. He got the same shit I did. And so.
Yeah, but it was all, not that I'm condoning it, but it was also a completely different time frame.
No, I know. But I'm just saying, like, when you plead no contest, what it means is that you are not saying you did it. You are not saying you're not doing it.
You're not saying you're guilty. You're not
saying
you're not guilty. You're just saying,
I'll just pay what you tell me to pay. Okay. And so that's what they gave him for raping this woman. Now, once Maria's case is over, Father John is now sent to Assumption Abbey in Missouri. And actually he was sent to a couple other places, but he was bounced around. Now, this abbey is basically where monks live. And it is during this time that monk Dale Tackney was asked to counsel Father John because he wanted to find out if the church wanted to find out if Father John was fit to be a monk, which I'll be honest with you, I don't quite know the difference between a priest, like a father, and a monk. I am not 100% sure what the difference is, but that's literally what they wanted him to do. Well, while he's doing this counseling, he finds out that Father John says, well, I did kill a woman, but he didn't say her name. He said, I killed a woman and he hurt another woman. This is what he supposedly tells John supposedly tells this to Dale Tackney when they're throughout their 3 to 6 months of counseling. And he basically is telling him this is, these are the things that I've done. Dale Tackney says that he felt in his own personal body and brain, it is not his job to judge Father John on his past. It is not his place to judge Father John on his problems. His whole entire job is to find out if he is going to thrive in the life of a monk. So he chooses not to report any of these things. Now, I also want to make it very clear.
Isn't that kind of the point of
yes.
confession? And
I was just
going to
say, I want to make it very clear that in the Catholic religion, at least, you can admit to killing
you're
somebody.
Repenting for your sins.
Yes, you can admit to killing somebody to a priest, and they are not obligated. As a matter of fact, I think they'll lose their priest. I don't know what you would call it. They will lose that if they go and report you to the police. So the fact that that is one of my big fucking issues is that this is why I say I don't know about other religions because I wasn't raised in other religions, but in the Catholic religion, they protect the people who do bad things because they're saying you're repenting for your sins and there's nothing you can do that God won't forgive.
See, and I think,
and I'm out here what are we talking about, folks?
I feel like there should be not like a fine line, but almost like a fine line of you can repent for your sins all you want. But if it's almost like therapy,
still need consequences.
Like my therapist says all the time. Not all the time, but when I first got introduced to her, she's like, anything between us will never be reported unless I legally have to report it or you are a harm to yourself or others.
Yes, that's absolutely
true. I feel like that's what it should be when you do confession too. Like if you are a harm to yourself or others or you have done something, and I'm not saying anything illegal. Like if you go to confession and you're like, yo, Father, I just did a line of coke in the bathroom, whatever. But I'm saying if you killed somebody, if you raped somebody, if any of those real serious crimes, they should have to report that.
What I can't figure out and what I will never...
Or they should have the ability to report it. I feel like probably fathers are, different for each person, but there's probably some fathers out there that would want to report those things, but know that they would lose, the ability to be a father. So it makes me wonder too, if they just having that ability and not getting reprimanded for it, to report it.
But see, the thing that I've never understood, and this is my entire life, I have never understood how you could make a rule in your religion that protects predators. I'll never fucking understand that.
If I go murder somebody, I'm not going to go confess.
No, but okay, but you're okay. But let me tell you this: there's this thing that basically most Catholics live with that is called Catholic guilt, and we are as Catholics, we're all sinners, and Catholics know that. And so the thing is, if you're a very strong Catholic, you will do bad stuff and you might feel bad about it. So you go and ask for forgiveness. But there are still consequences, people. There are still consequences. And I will never understand how a religion can protect people that do terrible things. That is me speaking from somebody that was born and raised Catholic. It bothers me. It doesn't mean that the Catholic religion as a whole is bad. I'm not saying that because I don't think that. I am just disgusted by the fact that they protect the people who do bad things. And by the way, I still strongly believe they do. I still strongly believe that there are definitely priests out there that do bad things. I can tell you right now, straight up, right off the top of my fucking noggin, I know a priest that, no, he didn't kill anybody. He didn't, nothing like that. But I know of a priest that was one of the churches that we attended who stole money from the church, and they protected his ass for years before he finally went to jail. And it's like, but he stole from his parishioners. They gave the money to this church and he stole it because why? He had a gambling problem. So they decided that they would protect him. And then finally, whatever happened made it to where criminal charges were brought against him and he was put into jail. But they protected him for
Which
a
I think
long
he's
time.
Out now, by the way.
But I mean, they protected him for a very long time. And it's like, for why? For why? He did something bad. He needs to have consequences for his fucking shit behavior.
I think that's what doesn't make sense to me is like you have all these people who would be on a jury or, well, no, we'll just say on a jury because that's like the easiest way. But you'll have people on a jury or you'll have people that have their opinions about like the crimes that we've talked about or crimes that are happening right now, you know, in our life or even with that one. With the father that we know, and you have your opinion on it. So why is it any different?
I know,
because it's just a religion. Like I'm saying, like you'll have like people that are Catholic that'll be like,
most of the
they
people
need to be punished for XYZ.
No, so I was
like,
just
so
going to say,
how is it different because he's a father? Because
right,
literally the only difference, you're still a fucking person. You're still a fucking human.
That's what I'm saying. Is that's why I'm saying the Catholic religion is not a bad thing. That's why I'm saying please don't take this as a I hate Catholics, because that's not what it is. I'm Catholic. I am Catholic, but what I'm trying to point out is that you have this thing where we protect people from the consequences that they deserve to have. And most people in the Catholic religion are appalled by it. They're disgusted by it. They think it's awful. So I want people to know that I'm not trying to shit on the Catholic religion. What I'm trying to do is bring light to the bad part of the Catholic religion. Well, we all know that there's an even worse part, and don't worry, this plays into it. So we'll keep going.
I know we keep going off track.
So Father John is found to not be a good fit for the lifestyle of a monk at the abbey. And so he's actually sent to Jimenez Springs in New Mexico. Now, this is where they supposedly sent priests, troubled priests, for treatment. Now, he's there for a very long time. He goes through treatment, whatever that is. And he actually eventually gets released from the program and works at the place. He stays there and works at the place. And then he becomes a supervisor. He's that good. Okay. Now, Father John actually ends up being responsible for assessing priests that have been there for whatever. A lot of the priests who went to this facility were there for things like alcohol problems, drug problems, things like that. And so they would go through these treatments and then he would assess them, make sure that they're good, and then send them back out into the world. Well, Father John was actually responsible for allowing James Porter to be released and placed in another parish. Now, if you don't know who James Porter is, let me tell you, James Porter began molesting children in the 1960s as a priest. He also later was removed from the church and sentenced to prison for molesting over 100 children. Now, Father John is the one who fucking let him go back into the world after it was found out that he had molested babies. Okay? That's why I fucking can't stand this shit right here. He went to this facility because he had a problem, because he molested boys. And so Father John's job was to assess to see if he was okay to be let back out into the world and be a priest. And he said, yes, he the fuck was. And then he went on to molest multiple children until the fucking 90s. When they finally fucking actually pressed charges. But it was found out in the 90s that they'd known about his sexual predator behavior since the fucking 60s. That is my problem with this whole we don't want to tell. You literally ruined hundreds of kids' lives because you wanted to protect one piece of shit pedophile. Bravo to you. Anyways, John ends up actually leaving priesthood in the 1970s. So he actually pulls out of for whatever reason. He goes on, he gets married, he has 3 kids. He also has jobs. He lives a normal life. He works as a volunteer at the St. Vincent de Paul Food Charity Center for 17 years in Arizona. 2002. Dale Tackney, Remember Dale? Dale the monk? Dale, Mr. Monk Tackney, that had to counsel him and found out that he had murdered these people, blah, blah, blah. He decides, I just don't think I can live with myself any longer knowing this information. So he ends up calling San Antonio because, according to him, when he had these counseling sessions with Father John never said anything about the names of the women, but he had thought to himself, well, he was from in San Antonio, so he must have done something like this in San Antonio. So he calls the San Antonio police, and he's like, listen, there's this guy. His name's Father John. Well, I don't think now he's John because he's no longer a priest. There's this guy, John Feit. He was a priest from this time to this time. He came to me and I counseled him. And during counseling, he actually told me that he had murdered a woman and that he had hurt another woman, but he didn't tell me their names, but he's from in San Antonio. So, to which the Texas Rangers are like, all right, cool. Let's look into this. Well, first of all, his name already rings a bell to some people because they're like, wait.
So like he was a suspect back.
Right. So they end up contacting a man named Joseph O'Brien, and Joseph O'Brien had actually worked with John at the time of this, that in the 60s when this had happened. So they start doing some investigating, and so now they have, Dale Tackney saying that this happened. So then they also contact Joseph O'Brien. Now, initially, Joseph denies having any knowledge of the incident, and he held that stance for a very long time, like in the beginning. When this first happened, they had actually interviewed Joseph O'Brien and said, do you know anything? Was there any suspicions that Father John was took her or did anything with her? To which he's like, I have no idea. I mean, no. From my knowledge, no, he did not. No, I didn't see him leave. No, I didn't, all this stuff. But now, in 2002, he now talks to the Texas Rangers and he says that, well, actually, John had confessed to me of killing Irene shortly after her body was found. So when they found her body, Father John had come to me and said, Father, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I killed Irene Garza. Okay. Now, and he kept that shit to himself until 2002. Now in 2004, so 2 years later, this whole thing all this shit was brought in front of a grand jury in Texas. When you bring something in front of the grand jury, there's a prosecuting attorney that initiates this. Now, what they do is they go to a grand jury and say, we want to try this guy. Here's all the evidence we have. Here's the witnesses we have. However, Dale Tackney, Joseph O'Brien, and John Feit, none of them were subpoenaed to come to the grand jury to fucking talk. So the grand jury is like, yeah, I don't see what the fuck you want us to do about this. So they decide they're not going to charge John Feit with murder. They're just like, this is nothing. The district attorney at the time said that he didn't feel that this was a very good case anyways. He even actually said,
a case is a case, dude.
A murder case of all things.
You don't get to pick and choose, oh, this is a good one.
And
it's not like you're fucking picking a Netflix movie to watch for the night.
Well, and you have two witnesses now that are saying that this man... Anyways, so he actually says, his words were, why would anyone be haunted by her death? She died. Her killer got away. That's what he fucking said.
Bro, I feel like he should be in jail just for being a fucking asshole.
Me too. Now, he also told Irene's cousin, because Irene's cousin, is like, this is 2004. Her cousin died a long time ago, and she wants justice. They know it's Father John. There's not proof, but there's some good evidence that shows it's Father John. So she keeps pushing him, like, no, we need to prosecute this case. And he apparently put his finger in her face and said, you will never get an indictment. You will get one when pigs fly. He just sounds like a complete
And then
dick.
I'd be the asshole that'd look at him and be like, go fucking jump off the bridge then.
For real, like, what a
Get you some
dick.
wings, motherfucker.
So here we are in April 2015. Okay, this is how long it's been. Now, during I didn't write it down. I don't remember. I think it might have been 2014. They vote on district attorneys and shit like that.
Yep.
So the district attorney from 2002 was rerunning, and this other man says, I'm going to go ahead and run against you. And he says one of the things he would do as a new district attorney is to prosecute the case of Irene Garza. And so he gets voted in. Okay. So now the Garza case is reopened by this new district attorney.
Bravo.
And February of 2016, John Feit is arrested in Scottsdale, Arizona. He's fucking 83 at the time he gets arrested. Okay.
Which I will say, it's almost I don't want to say it, but like it's almost pointless at that point, you know? Like,
no, I know. So he does enter a not guilty plea. He says he is not responsible for this. Now, on November 28th, 2017, John goes to trial and Dale Tackney does testify against him. Now, the problem with Dale Tackney's testifying is Dale is also a very elderly man and he suffers from some memory loss issues. And so that is one of the things that they're talking about. He also made some references to things that when he said them, they were like, he told you that. And he's like, you know, he had said that when he first came forward, he said that, you know, John had told him all these things. But later he came out and said, well, he did say that he murdered a woman. He told me that he murdered a woman and that he had harmed another woman and that he had, that she was I think he said in the bathtub in his house. But back when in 2002, he had actually said like, oh, he told me that he murdered her. He told me that he bound her. He told me that he, like, all these things. And so they were like, did he really tell you those things? He's like, well, no, these were assumptions. Like, she didn't get up and leave. So obviously she was tied up somehow. Right. So so he put his own like thoughts.
Twist on it.
Yeah. And so that was something that kind of worked against them because they were like, your witness isn't even telling the truth. He did say, however, that she was, from what he says, is that she had been raped, she had been beaten, she was placed in the bathtub in John's home. And the reason he knows this is because John told him that he had put something either in her mouth or over her head. He didn't specifically say. And he said that as he was walking out of the room, he kept hearing her say, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And he shut the door and left. And he came back after doing the confessionals. So you know how he left like 4 times? He was going to check on her because she was at his house. And he said that she was dead when he got back. Now, they do think that he wanted to kill her. They don't think that he was like just saving her for like they think that his plan was to kill her. He was just trying to figure out like what to do. Apparently, Father John had told Dale Tackney also, you know, it's been pointed out that he has no remorse. A lot of people have said like he's never said sorry. He says he didn't do it. He doesn't, you know, even Dale said he never said that he was like sorry. What he said was, I have nightmares because all I can hear is her heels clicking on my floor, like walking into his house. That's what he fucking.
That's your fucking.
That's
memory.
what he fucking. Yeah, that's what he fucking. That haunts him. Not that you murdered her. Not that you raped
breathe,
her.
I
not
can't
that
breathe.
you. Yeah, none of that. But her fucking high heels on the floor.
No, it doesn't give him nightmares. It probably turns him on. Is what it fucking does.
I don't know. So again, Dale ends up testifying against him, and on December 7th, 2017, John Feit is convicted of the murder of Irene Garza. Now, during the sentencing phase, the defense had actually asked that John receive fucking probation, citing the fact that he hadn't had any other felonies since killing Irene. Because, you know, that's how this works. Now, the prosecution had actually asked for 57 years. And this was a symbolic ask because it had been 57 years since Irene was murdered. So they wanted him to go to jail for how long he's been out of jail. Now, after he's found guilty, Linda De La Vina, which is Irene's cousin, the one that was fucking pushing for this, the one who got the finger in her face that said, you'll never get an indictment, you'll get one when the pigs are flying. She actually said, all I can say right now is pigs are flying and Irene is resting.
Fucking mic drop.
Now on December 8th, 2017, the jury decides to give John Feit a life sentence.
Which again, I get it, but also what the fuck is the point? Because that motherfucker's gonna, even if they would have done the 57 years, like, he's probably gonna live like 10.
Well, he was put into W.J. Estelle unit in Texas, and he did die on February 12th, 2020 of natural causes. He was 87. So he was only
2020, he probably died of COVID.
That's what I'm thinking. Well, but it was February before COVID became really big. So they said natural.
But COVID was still.
Because the first case of COVID came to Washington in January, and it wasn't in like Texas and those places quite yet. And it would be really hard to get into the jails at that point. So, and maybe he was 87. Like, he was 87 years old. Like, he needed, but he served 3 years.
Woo.
Yeah, he served 3 years for killing this woman a long time ago. So, again, I want to preface, because I know that some people listening to this are probably like, wow, you just totally shit on the Catholic religion. I don't want you to take it that way. I really am not trying to, but I do not think for 1 second that we should pretend like the Catholic priests and the Catholic diocese doesn't protect bad people. And that needs to be spoken
about. Well, I'm also
about.
tired of everybody just thinking, like, everybody knows that they're not peachy keen people all the time, but they're a father, so they're peachy keen all the time. I think that's what I get tired of, is they can do wrong, but they can't do wrong. You know what I mean?
No, it's not that. It's not that. Because if you listen very much so, what they say is, no, we understand they did something wrong, but we will basically punish them in our own way. The problem is, punishing them is not the same thing as going to jail. Punishing them is making them go to a facility where they get, I don't even know, treatment for whatever they're fucking doing. And I understand that you want to give treatment to a priest that gets caught stealing, or a priest that gets caught drinking on the job or having a drug addiction. Sure. I can understand not wanting to press charges. Yeah, I can get that. I get that. I will never, ever in my life understand protecting a priest who murdered somebody or protecting a priest that's a pedophile. That will never make sense to me. That person does not deserve to be a priest. I don't give a shit that God, you know what? God can fucking deal with it when that priest dies, but they should not be allowed to be in contact with anybody ever again in the name of the church. Mm-hmm. And the fact that their first thought isn't to, okay, we're going to strip you of your fatherly duties and we're going to press charges against you because you fucking completely destroyed the trust that people, our parishioners, have in us. The fact that it's not your first damn go-to tells me that you're protecting you protect bad people. And so again, it is not the whole Catholic religion. And I understand that. And the Catholic religion has their own views on things like death and, the death penalty and abortion and all these things. And fine, have your views. However, I find it very hypocritical to sit there and say that a girl can't have an abortion because it's murder, but a priest can murder and you protect. I don't understand that. I never will. And it's frustrating as hell, especially being somebody who was raised Catholic, because I was raised with this thought of how the Catholic religion is supposed to be. And it's not like that at all. And it's very disappointing.
Like I said, eye for an eye. Don't give a fuck who you are.
If you read the Old Testament, that's what God said, eye for an eye. So I don't understand why we got that message got shit twisted somewhere along the lines, and I don't know why. But anyways, so that is the story of Father John Feit, who I personally don't think deserves to ever be called a father. But for the story purpose, I had to call him Father John Feit. Because, that kind of puts an oomph into why I'm so heated about this damn story. And I apologize if I sounded harsh or rude, but it hurts my heart coming from somebody who was born and raised Catholic to have to tell a story about a priest, which is the person you're supposed to trust, and to know that he also is the reason why a bunch of boys were continuing to be molested was because of Father John Feit allowing him to go back out into the church.
And to know he essentially got away with murder. Because if I'm
being
honest,
he totally did. Yes, he lived his whole life.
Yes, he spent 3 years in prison, but
yeah, he lived his whole life.
Years.
No, he lived his whole life. His whole life. He had a whole ass family.
And also
he had a whole ass everything.
He
and
probably
that
would
was
have died at home.
Yeah, he would have.
The same age.
I totally agree. There is, in my mind, justification was not served, and it was not served because the Catholic religion protected him. That's it.
Well, and the fucking DA.
That DA.
That as well.
Oh my God, he's such a shit stain.
Because it wouldn't have been that much big of a difference.
No,
it
wouldn't. It would have been 10 years, 11.
Oh yeah, I guess.
Or
so,
actually, it was 2017, so 12 years. It would have been a 12-year difference because it was 2004.
I forgot that's
when they first brought this shit up. He would have spent at least 12 years in jail, which would have been a little bit more worth it.
Still not what he deserves.
No, because he went he had his whole ass life. And also, one more thing. Can you imagine being his family? Could you imagine the fucking utter shock? Or anybody who worked with him, because everybody said oh, he was the nicest guy. He was God-fearing, blah, blah. So you have this vision of somebody, and then you find out that they're a fucking murderer, And the fact that he was able to hide it like that and just live his normal ass life is appalling. Like it's awful. And so it's just, I also feel bad for his family. His family is a victim in this too, because they had no damn idea. They had no idea. Their father, their husband, who has taken care of them their entire life.
What would you do if it was dad?
I'd kill him.
Okay. Government, she's not
I'm just kidding.
Serious.
So
what would you do? 'Cause I'm going to tell you right now, if that was dad.
Well, I disown, like I can't really disown him because he's not my child, but like I would literally be like, you're on your own, motherfucker. Because I wouldn't pay for anything. I wouldn't visit him in jail. I wouldn't do any fucking thing. You know what I would do? I know what I would do. I would completely cut him off from any sort of conversation or anything with me. And then I would turn around and go to the family, to Irene's family, and I would work with them on forgiveness for myself and for them, and I would try to form like a really good relationship with them and try to turn it into something good. That's what I would
my
do.
Weird ass would keep in contact with dad in the sense of like to talk about like what the fuck, like why, like, you know, the whole like criminology side of it. That's what I would do. And then as soon as I'd get what I'd want, I'd be like, yep, and you're fucking dead to me. And I would never talk with you to see him again.
I would have zero.
And I'm really, for obviously you probably all don't know, but like I'm closer with my dad than I am my mom. So that's saying a lot.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, again, his family was victims in this too. And so I feel so incredibly bad for them because he's got 3 children. I don't know their names and I'm not going, I wouldn't even try to search it. But those 3 children, they're adults, obviously. These 3 people whose father, who they love dearly, this is their father. Now, they may not be as cold-hearted as I am or as you are. They might still have kept in contact with their dad because it was still their dad. I could not. I can't condone or I mean, I say it about my own kids. If my kids do something that's really horrific, basically they're dead to me. Like if they murder somebody because they fucking want to be a serial killer, you're dead to me. And I will have to grieve. And I will treat it as if my child died. That's how it would end up having to be, is I would pretend like if it was my husband had died. And I would be sad because you have this whole life that you built, but I can't forgive or forget something that somebody did that's that horrific, period. So anyways, that is the story of Father John Feit. And yeah, if you like what you're listening to, if you like hearing us talk about things, not necessarily religion, because this is a tough one. Like I said, for me personally, this was tough, but it needs to be told. Make sure you click the follow button. New episodes come out every Tuesday, and share us with the world. Y'all are doing a good job. We've got lots of international folks listening, so we definitely appreciate you. And I think for now, I'm just going to say, catch you on the flip side, bitches.
Bye, bitches.